Elizabeth Hargrove had built her world in the sun-bleached hills of Andalusia brick by stubborn brick, far from the manicured suburbs of Connecticut, where she'd once dreamed of white picket fences and summer barbecues. At 35, she was the American widow who traded Wall Street spreadsheets for olive groves, inheriting her late husband's crumbling finca after a car accident on the winding roads near Malaga 5 years prior. The estate, La Esperanza, wasn't much, a modest villa with terracotta roofs, flanked by gnarled olive trees that whispered secrets in the Sirocco winds, but it was hers, a sanctuary of sorts, where the scent of blooming jasmine drowned out the ghosts of what-ifs. She ran it as a boutique agriturismo now, renting out rooms to wanderlust-struck tourists who paid in euros for the romance of Spain without the hassle of its history. It kept the lights on, barely, and filled the echoing halls with fleeting laughter that masked her solitude. That stormy October evening, as thunder rolled in from the Sierra de las Nieves, Elizabeth wasn't thinking about legacies or loneliness. She was elbow-deep in the villa's kitchen, wrestling with a pot of garbanzo stew that bubbled defiantly on the Aga stove, its steam fogging the windows against the downpour. The power had flickered twice already, and she cursed under her breath. Another night of candles and generator hum. Her auburn hair, tied back in a haphazard ponytail, frizzed at the temples from the humidity, and the faint scar on her left cheek, a remnant from a childhood fall off her father's sailboat, itched in the damp air. She wiped her hands on a dish towel embroidered with faded flamenco dancers, glancing at the clock. 7:45 p.m. Too late for guests, too early for bed. Just another evening in purgatory. The knock came like a gunshot, sharp, insistent, cutting through the rain's tattoo on the roof. Elizabeth froze, spoon midway to her mouth. No one knocked at La Esperanza unannounced. The gravel drive was a beast that announced arrivals from a mile off. She set the spoon down, heart thudding inexplicably, and crossed the flagstone floor to the heavy oak door. Flinging it open, she was met not with the expected lost hiker, but a vision of drenched defiance. A woman in her early 30s, soaked to the bone, clutching a leather portfolio like it held state secrets. Water streamed from her long dark waves of hair, plastering them to a face that was all sharp angles and olive skin, eyes like polished chestnuts wide with a mix of fear and fire. "Lo siento," the woman gasped, her English laced with a rolling Andalusian accent that turned apologies into poetry. I was told this is where the job is. The assistant position? I know it's late, but the bus from Ronda broke down and Dios mío, I'm making a fool of myself." She thrust the portfolio forward, pages fluttering like trapped birds, her free hand trembling as she brushed rain from her lashes. Elizabeth blinked, the pieces clicking into place. The ad, she'd posted it weeks ago on a local expat board, half-hearted, for help with the endless admin that choked her days. Bookings, harvests, the endless dance with Spanish bureaucracy. "You're here for the job," she managed, stepping aside to let the storm in. The woman nodded, dripping a trail across the threshold, her simple white blouse clinging transparently to the curve of her shoulders. But there was no time for awkward glances. Elizabeth grabbed a towel from the hall rack and draped it over her like a cape. "Camila Reyes," the woman said, extending a hand that Elizabeth shook, feeling the chill of rain and resolve in her palm. "From Seville originally. I saw the posting online, something about needing someone who knows the land and the ledgers." "Elizabeth Hargrove," she replied, leading her to the kitchen fire, where flames licked at pine logs she'd chopped herself that morning. "And yeah, that's me. Sit. Warm up. The interview can wait 5 minutes. You look like you've been through a war." Camila sank into a wooden chair, the towel cocooning her as she peeled open the portfolio. Resumes in crisp Spanish and English, references from a stint at a Malaga winery, sketches of irrigation systems that spoke of a mind as practical as it was creative. They talked haltingly at first, Camila's journey from a crowded apartment in Triana to the olive fields of her grandparents, her degree in agronomy abandoned for the grind of seasonal work, Elizabeth's own transplant story, the accident that left her adrift in a language she still mangled. The stew cooled untouched as the clock ticked past 8, the rain easing to a patter. By 9, with Camila's hair drying in loose waves and her cheeks flushed from the fire's glow, Elizabeth made the offer. "Start tomorrow? Room and board included, plus €800 a month to start. If you can handle the tourists and the tax forms, you're a miracle." Camila's laugh was a bright, unexpected thing, like sunlight piercing clouds. Deal. But only if you teach me how to make that stew without burning the bottom. That first week blurred into a rhythm neither had anticipated. Camila arrived at dawn, her battered Fiat coughing up the drive, and dove in with the ferocity of someone who'd known hunger, not just for food but for purpose. She reorganized the office, a sunlit alcove off the villa's salon, turning chaos into color-coded calendars that made Elizabeth's head spin with efficiency. In the groves she moved like she belonged, her hands sure on the pruners, singing old coplas under her breath that Elizabeth pretended not to overhear. The guests noticed too whispers of La Nueva Chica in the breakfast courtyard, where platters of fresh figs and manchego drew them like moths. Elizabeth watched from afar at first, from the balcony where she nursed her morning café con leche, noting the way Camila's sundresses swirled around her ankles in the breeze, the silver ring on her thumb glinting as she gestured animatedly to a group of Dutch hikers about the ancient Moorish irrigation channels. There was a lightness to her, a spark that La Esperanza hadn't seen since Elizabeth's husband, Tomás, had filled these halls with his booming laugh. But Tomás was gone, his photos tucked in a drawer, and Elizabeth had long since armored herself against such echoes. Yet cracks formed. One evening as they shared a bottle of house red on the terrace, stars pricking the velvet sky like promises, Camila asked about the scar. Horseback riding gone wrong? She teased, her finger hovering but not touching. Elizabeth touched it absently, the wine loosening her tongue. Sailing actually. Dad's fault, thought a 9-year-old could handle the boom. Connecticut summers all salt and sails. He said it built character. She paused, the old ache surfacing. What about you? That ring. Family heirloom. Camila's smile faltered just a flicker as she twisted the silver band. My mother's. She passed when I was 20. Breast cancer. Left me this and a stack of debts. She took a long sip, eyes on the horizon where the moon silvered the groves. Spain's beautiful, but it chews you up if you're not careful. They fell quiet then, the night wrapping around them like a shared secret. Elizabeth felt it, a pull subtle as the tide, toward this woman who'd stormed in from the rain. It scared her, that pull, reminding her of college crushes she buried under layers of normalcy, of the one girl in her dorm whose kiss had tasted like rebellion and regret. But Camila was different. Grounded, fierce, with a laugh that coaxed blooms from stone. By month's end the finca hummed. Bookings tripled, thanks to Camila's Instagram posts of sunsets over the Algibe fountain, captions in bilingual poetry that drew Americans like Elizabeth, homesick for adventure. They worked side by side in the press room during the harvest, sleeves rolled up, the air thick with the green tang of crushed olives. Camila's arm brushed Elizabeth's as they hauled crates, and neither pulled away. You're a natural, Elizabeth said one dusk, wiping sweat from her brow. Camila grinned, dimples flashing. Or you're a good teacher. Ever think about expanding? A cooking school, maybe? Teach those Yankees how to really taste Spain. The idea lodged in Elizabeth's chest, warm and wild. That night, as thunder grumbled distant threats, they sketched plans on napkins by candlelight, Camila's knee pressing against hers under the table. When their eyes met, held, Elizabeth's breath caught on the edge of something unspoken. A bridge spanning the gorge of her guarded heart. But bridges, as Rhonda's history knew, could crumble under the weight of secrets. November brought the Vendaval winds, whipping through the Serrania de Ronda like an uninvited guest, stripping leaves from the olives and scattering them like confetti at a funeral. La Esperanza stood firm, its whitewashed walls scarred but unbowed, much like Elizabeth felt those days. Camila had woven herself into the fabric of the place, into her days, her dreams, with the ease of morning light. They rose before the roosters, Camila in the kitchen experimenting with fusion dishes. Paella laced with New England lobster from a smuggled tin, or tortilla española topped with smoked salmon from Elizabeth's care packages from home. Guests raved, tipping extra for the American twist. And Elizabeth watched Camila bloom, her confidence unfurling like the jasmine vines that climbed the pergola. Yet beneath the idol, Elizabeth sensed shadows. Camila's phone would buzz at odd hours, her face tightening as she silenced it with a flick of her thumb. Once, during a lull in the Grove work, Elizabeth caught her staring at the silver ring, twisting it like a worry stone, her lips moving in silent prayer or curse. Everything okay? Elizabeth asked, pruning shears poised mid-snip. Camila startled, shoving the phone into her pocket. See just. Family stuff. My sister's getting married soon. In Seville. Invites and drama. You know how it is. She forced a laugh, but it rang hollow, and Elizabeth let it drop, though the unease lingered like mist in the valleys. Their closeness deepened in stolen moments. Afternoons when the heat peaked and guests napped, they'd retreat to the library. A dusty room Tomas had filled with leather-bound classics and dog-eared guidebooks. Camila would curl on the window seat, reading Lorca aloud in her lilting cadence, while Elizabeth pretended to balance ledgers at the desk, stealing glances at the way sunlight haloed her hair. One such afternoon, as rain pattered against the panes, another storm front rolling in, Camila set the book down and crossed to her. "You've got ink on your cheek," she murmured, leaning close, her thumb brushing the spot. Time stretched, the air thickening with the scent of old paper and her citrus soap. Elizabeth's pulse thrummed, her hand rising to cover Camila's, holding it there. Their breaths mingled, eyes tracing the map of each other's faces, the faint lines of laughter at Camila's eyes, the scar's pale crescent on Elizabeth's cheek. "I shouldn't," Elizabeth whispered, but her body betrayed her, leaning in until their foreheads touched, a dam breaking in slow motion. Camila's voice was a feather against her skin. "Then don't." And she shouldn't. Their lips met, soft, tentative like the first rain on parched earth, tasting of salt and sweetness and the terror of truth. It wasn't fire, not yet, but a steady burn, Camila's hand sliding to the nape of Elizabeth's neck, pulling her closer as if to anchor them both. When they parted, gasping, the world outside had shifted. The library felt smaller, charged, the books silent witnesses to a confession neither voiced. From there it was a quiet courtship, laced with the drama of secrecy. They stole kisses in the olive rose at twilight, Camila's back against a trunk, Elizabeth's fingers threading through her waves. Nights, after lights out, Camila would slip into Elizabeth's room, the master suite with its canopied bed and balcony overlooking the gorge, whispering stories of her childhood in the Triana pottery markets, her dreams of owning a plot of land where she could grow saffron and peace. Elizabeth shared her own fractures, the marriage to Tomas born of convenience after her coming-out whispers in grad school, the accident that freed her but chained her to grief. "I came here to hide," she admitted one midnight, Camila's head on her chest, the silver ring cool against her skin. "But you make me want to be found." Camila traced patterns on her collarbone. "I'm not going anywhere. This feels like home." But home, Elizabeth learned, was a fragile thing. The betrayal crept in on All Saints' Day, when the winds died and the air hung heavy with the smoke of memorial bonfires. Elizabeth returned early from a market run in Ronda, arms laden with marzipan skulls and fresh lemons, to find Camila in the office, phone pressed to her ear, voice low and urgent in rapid Spanish. "No, Papa, I can't, not yet. The job here is good, but it's complicated." A pause, her free hand clenching the ring until knuckles whitened. "He's waiting? But I told you I need time. Elizabeth depends on me." Elizabeth froze in the doorway, the bag slipping from her grip, lemons rolling like errant thoughts across the tiles. "Depends on me." The words twisted, innocent on the surface but laced with omission. Camila turned, eyes widening in horror, the phone dropping to her lap. "Liz, it's not." "Who's he?" Elizabeth's voice was steady, a lie she wore like armor, stepping over the fruit to face her. "The one waiting in Seville? Your sister's wedding. Is that code for something else?" Camila stood, hands outstretched, the ring catching the light like a taunt. "It's my fiancé, okay? Javier. Arranged since we were kids, family business, the vineyard he runs with my father. I came here to breathe, to figure out if I could break it without shattering everything." Tears welled, spilling hot. "I never meant to us this. It happened, Liz. Realer than anything I've known. But they need me back. The harvest there is failing, and if I don't..." The room spun, Elizabeth's world fracturing like the bridge in that first storm. Betrayal wasn't a knife. It was the slow seep of ink on paper, blurring lines she dared to draw. "You came for a job," she echoed the title of their story, voice cracking. "And now? Am I just the complication? The American fling before you go home to your real life?" "No." Camila surged forward, gripping her arms, desperation etching her features. "You're everything. Javier's a ghost, a duty I never chose. I love you, Elizabeth. Madly, stupidly. But family. They don't bend. Elizabeth wrenched free, the scar on her cheek burning as if reopened. Mine didn't either. That's why I crossed an ocean. She turned, fleeing to the terrace, where the gorge mocked her with its endless drop. Camilla followed, rain starting anew, soaking them as words flew like barbs. Accusations of deceit, pleas of passion, the wind howling their grief. By dawn Camilla was gone, her Fiat's taillights vanishing down the drive like a fading dream. Elizabeth stood alone, the villa echoing emptier than before, the olive stripped bare by the gale. She cancelled the week's bookings, barricaded herself in the library, Lorca's pages blurring through tears. Days bled into weeks, the wind's wail her only companion, until the first frost dusted the groves and Elizabeth realized. Love, once given, didn't unmake itself. Scarred, yes, but it also healed if she let it. December in Andalusia was a study in contrasts. Crisp mornings where breath fogged like secrets. Afternoons warm enough to lure the bold into picnics by the fountain. La Esperanza limped on without Camilla, Elizabeth handling the remnants of the season with mechanical precision. Refunds issued with clipped emails, groves neglected until the pruners rusted in their shed. She avoided Seville, avoided the radio's flamenco laments, avoided the mirror where her reflection stared back hollow-eyed, the scar a stark reminder of falls not yet mended. The postcards started arriving mid-month, slipped into the mailbox like contraband. One from Córdoba, a sepia shot of the Mezquita's arches, Camilla's script looping across the back. The horses at the feria reminded me of your stories, wild and free. Miss the way you laugh at my bad English. See. Another from Granada, the Alhambra's tiles vivid as memory. Javier's harvest saved by rain, but it tastes like ash without you. Thinking of our napkin plans. Love always. Elizabeth hoarded them in the drawer with Tomas's photos, fingers tracing the ink until it smudged, torn between burning them and begging for more. Christmas Eve brought the storm's echo, a nor'easter of emotion when her sister, Margaret, called from Hartford, voice crackling over the Atlantic. Lizzie, it's been months. When are you coming home? The house feels wrong without you. Home. The word soured on Elizabeth's tongue as she paced the salon, fairy lights twinkling mockingly on the mantel. This is home now, Max. The finca, the hills, it's mine. Margaret's sigh was a gust. And that Spanish girl? The one you mentioned? She sounds like trouble. She's gone. The admission clawed out raw. Lied about everything. Fiancé, family, the whole knot of it. Silence then. Love's not a ledger, sis. You can't balance it. Remember Aunt Clara? She waited out a dozen bad ones before finding peace. Alone but whole. Elizabeth hung up, the receiver heavy as regret, and wandered to the balcony. The gorge below was a velvet scar in the moonlight, stars wheeling overhead like indifferent gods. She thought of Aunt Clara, the family eccentric who'd lived openly in the 70s, her Greenwich Village apartment a haven for misfits, dying content with cats and canvases. Whole, Elizabeth whispered to the night, but wholeness felt like amputation. The new year dawned with tentative light, and with it a letter, not a postcard but thick vellum, scented with lavender from Triana's markets. Camilla's words spilled across pages, the pressure of her father's failing vines, Javier's quiet understanding when she confessed her heart lay elsewhere, the family's ultimatum that forced her flight. I broke it off, Liz. Told them I'm done playing heir to a cage. But pride kept me away, thought you'd hate me deservedly. If there's a bridge left, I'll cross it. If not, know I carry you in every sunrise. Elizabeth read it by the library fire, tears hissing on embers, then folded it into her pocket and drove. The road to Seville twisted like doubt, past white villages clinging to cliffs, the radio murmuring seguidillas that twisted her gut. She found Camilla in the Reyes vineyard on the Guadalquivir's banks, knee-deep in mud, directing workers with the same fire that had lit La Esperanza. Their eyes met across the rows, time folding in on itself. Camilla's hair tied back with a scarf, dirt smudged on her cheek like war paint, the silver ring absent from her thumb. You came, Camilla breathed, striding over, boots sucking in the clay. Up close, exhaustion etched her shadows under those chestnut eyes, but the spark undimmed. Elizabeth's voice trembled. Your letters. They were lifelines. But it's not a postcard romance. You hit him, Camilla. That cuts deeper than the wind. Camilla nodded, rain inevitable. starting to spit from gray clouds. I know. Fear made me small. Javier was safety, not love. A boy's promise to a girl who didn't know herself yet. You showed me. She reached out, tentative, and Elizabeth didn't pull away, their hands clasping wet and real amid the vines. They talked for hours there in the downpour, workers scattering like leaves. Camila spoke of her mother's deathbed wish. Live true mi hija. Not for vines or vows. Elizabeth confessed her own chains. The heteronormative script she'd followed until Tomas's death ripped it apart, leaving her to rewrite in a foreign tongue. I fell for you before the kiss, she admitted. Your hands on the pruners, your voice in the dark. But trust. It's the harvest we lost. Camila's laugh was watery, relieved. Then let's replant. Together. I'll come back, no more hiding. But fate, dramatic as a Lorca tragedy, had other acts. As they drove back to Rhonda that evening, the sky unleashing a torrent, a call shattered the fragile peace. Margaret again, voice shrill. Dad had a stroke, Liz. Bad. Get home now. Elizabeth's world tilted, the Fiat swerving on the slick highway as grief and duty collided. Camila gripped the wheel with her silent support, but the pull westward, across oceans, loomed like the gorge's edge. In the airport haze of Malaga 2 days later, suitcases packed with half-formed dreams, they clung in the departure lounge, travelers milling like ghosts. Go, Camila urged, her warmth the anchor. Family first. I'll hold the finca, our bridge. Elizabeth cupped her face, thumbs tracing those dimples. This isn't goodbye. It's a verse, not the end. Their kiss was fierce, public for the first time, drawing stares they ignored. A declaration amid the din of announcements. The flight to Hartford was a blur of turbulence mirroring her soul, landing in snow-dusted runways that felt alien after Andalusia's embrace. Her father's bedside vigil stretched weeks. Beeps and whispers, Margaret's hand in hers, the Connecticut chill seeping into bones that craved sun. Letters flew back. Camila's now emails, vivid with photos of budding olives, plans for that cooking school sketched in digital ink. Waiting for your return, Amor. The Groves missed their queen. Elizabeth wrote back in stolen moments, words pouring like confessions. The weight of her father's fading stories, the realization that home wasn't a place but the people who called you back. When he stabilized, frail but fighting, she booked the return, heart lighter than the jet stream. Spring teased the Serrania with almond blossoms when she crested the drive. La Esperanza bursting with guests. Camila's doing, the courtyard alive with laughter and the sizzle of tapas. She found her in the kitchen, apron dusted with flour, rolling dough for empanadas, humming a copla that twisted into an old Sinatra tune. Miss me? Elizabeth teased, dropping her bag, the scar on her cheek catching the light like a badge. Camila turned, floury hands framing her face. Every damn day. Their embrace was homecoming, deep and unhurried, the world fading to the rhythm of their breaths. But drama lingered in the wings. Whispers from Seville reached them by summer. Javier, heartbroken but honorable, selling his share to start anew in Valencia. Camila's father, pride wounded, cutting her from the will. They'll come around, she insisted over dinner on the terrace, stars winking approval. Or they won't. But we have this, us, the finca, the life we're building. Elizabeth raised her glass, the house red deep as their gaze. To bridges. And not burning them. Yet the true climax brewed in August heat, when a letter arrived not from family but fate. An offer for Elizabeth from a Connecticut consortium, to consult on sustainable farms, lucrative, a ticket back to roots. It's a chance, Margaret urged in a follow-up call. Dad's asking for you more. Stability, Liz. The conflict tore at her nights. Tossing on sheets scented with Camila's lavender, staring at the ceiling beams Tomas had carved with hopeful initials. Camila sensed it, their lovemaking turning tender, laced with unspoken fears. Whatever you choose, she murmured one dawn, fingers in auburn strands. I'll understand. Love isn't possession. The decision hung like the August moon, full and unforgiving, illuminating the terrace where Elizabeth paced, wine glass sweating in her palm. La Esperanza thrummed below. Guests at the long table, Camila orchestrating the feast with her effortless grace, laughter rising like smoke from the grill. But up here, alone with the gorge's murmur, Elizabeth wrestled the siren call of America. Security for her father's care, a network of old ties, the ease of English unaccented. Yet Spain had claimed her, the land's raw poetry, Camilla's quiet strength, the finca's pulse syncing with her own. Camilla found her at midnight, the party winding down to guitar strums and clinking glasses. "You look like you're solving world hunger," she said, sliding beside her, hip to hip, a stolen bite of paella on her breath. Elizabeth handed her the letter, pages crinkling in the breeze. "They want me back. Big money. Mag says it's perfect for Dad's bills." Camilla read in silence, the moon silvering her waves, expression unreadable. When she finished, she folded it carefully, eyes lifting to meet Elizabeth's, steady, shadowed. "And you? What does your heart say?" The question cracked her open. "It screams stay. But duty. It's the betrayal I know best. Leaving you would be the worst kind, self-inflicted." Camilla pulled her close, arms a harbor. "Then don't. Write your own duty. We can video Dad's visits, fundraise for the farm school. Make this our legacy." Tears pricked hot as the Sirocco. "What if I regret it? What if the pull west wins?" A soft laugh, bittersweet. "Regret's a ghost, amor. But love? It's the only thing that haunts worth the while." Dawn brought clarity, the letter burned in the kitchen hearth. Ashes stirred into the compost heap. Fertilizer for new growth. Elizabeth called Margaret that morning, voice firm over the crackle. "I'm staying. Spain's my route now. Tell Dad I'll visit in autumn with stories he'll envy." The line hummed with surprise, then acceptance. "Proud of you, Lizzie. For choosing you." Summer waned into vendimia, the harvest a frenzy of sun and sweat. Camilla and Elizabeth shoulder to shoulder in the press, oil gleaming golden as their shared glances. The cooking school took shape, a converted barn with classes blending Andalusian soul and Yankee ingenuity. Gazpacho with a kick of bourbon, churros dipped in maple crema. Guests swelled, word spreading through expat vines. The finca's coffers filling enough for Elizabeth to hire help, easing the load. Yet the drama's undercurrent simmered. In September, Camilla's father arrived unannounced. A bear of a man with salt and pepper beard and eyes like storm clouds, pulling up in a dusty Land Rover that coughed like old grudges. He stood in the courtyard, hat in hand, surveying the blooms as if measuring worth. "Camilla," he rumbled, voice gravel from cigars and arguments, "we need to talk." Elizabeth watched from the balcony, heart in her throat as Camilla faced him, chin lifted, no trace of the girl who'd fled rain-soaked bridges. Words flew in heated Spanish. Inheritance, honor, the unnatural path she'd chosen. "Papa, this is my life," Camilla shot back, gesturing to the groves, the villa, Elizabeth descending the stairs to stand beside her. "She's my heart. La Esperanza is our future." His gaze shifted to Elizabeth, appraising the scar, the steady stance, the hand she took in Camilla's. Silence stretched, thick as olive pulp, until he sighed, shoulders slumping like felled trees. "Your mother. She always said love bends, doesn't break. If this makes you whole." He trailed off, pulling an envelope from his pocket, deeds to a small plot adjoining the Reyes vines. "For you both. Build on it. But visit, eh? Family's a vine too, tangled but strong." Camilla's sob was joy, embracing him fierce. Elizabeth joining in a hug that smelled of earth and forgiveness. He stayed for lunch, gruff stories of harvests past, toasting with house red to new roots. When he left, the dust settling like benediction, Camilla turned to Elizabeth, eyes shining. "See? Bridges hold." October circled back to storms, but this one they weathered arm in arm on the terrace, rain sheeting the world clean. The gorge below roared approval, and as lightning etched the sky, Elizabeth pulled Camilla close, lips brushing her temple. "You came for a job," she murmured, echoing their origin, "and stayed for a life." Camilla smiled against her neck, the silver ring, reclaimed from her mother's things, now on a chain between them. "And you? Can't imagine your days without me." "Never could. Not since that knock." Winter softened into spring, La Esperanza thriving. The school a hub for lovers of land and lore. Guests lingering longer, drawn to the quiet revolution of two women rewriting exile into embrace. Elizabeth's father visited in May, wheelchair-bound but eyes alight, wheeling through groves with tales of Connecticut winters paling beside Spanish sun. "You've built something real, kid," he rasped over dinner, Camilla at his side like a daughter. Margaret followed, camera in hand, capturing the alchemy for family albums. Years folded like petals. A commitment ceremony under the olives. Vows exchanged in bilingual whispers. Rings simple as the one Camila once twisted in fear. They adopted a stray dog, a mutt with wanderlust eyes, and planted saffron on the gifted plot. Its threads gold as their mornings. Conflicts came, tourist spills, tax woes, the occasional homesick pang. But they met them hand in clasp, Camila's fire tempering Elizabeth's caution, Elizabeth's steadiness grounding Camila's dreams. One evening, years on, as sunset painted the terrace in fire, Elizabeth found Camila sketching irrigation maps, much like that first portfolio. "Remember Rhonda Bridge?" she asked, settling beside her. Camila's dimples flashed. "How could I forget? You saved me." Elizabeth shook her head. Auburn streaked with silver now, scars softened by time. "We saved each other. From storms, from selves." In the gorgeous hush with stars emerging like old friends, they kissed slow sure. The story of them etched in every line. She had come only to apply for a job, but in the end, Camila Reyes became the heart of La Esperanza, the pulse of Elizabeth Hargrove's days. And in that American-infused corner of Spain, where olive roots delved deep and love bridged every chasm, they lived not perfectly, but humanly whole, woven, unbreakable.